going, Scott?
What's up, Michael and Stacey? Ready for a little Mariners therapy session?
Oh, please.
Oh,
Can I lay down? Can I lay down?
Yes. I'm driving, but I'm gonna have to pull over soon, or I'm gonna get too angry because obviously I'm covering every team, but I am pissed off for Mariners fans, and we have been voicing our opinions with players, with fans, the whole deal on our shows every day. So I'm here for it.
Tell me one of the biggest reasons you are angry, Scott.
Money, straight up. That's number one. When you tank for a number of years and you build up a great core that's mostly on the pitching side, there is an expectation that the money that you did not spend for a number of years will then be pushed in when you are good. And we are a team that had so much positive momentum after finally changing the script and getting this team out of a ridiculously long postseason drought. Expectations are raised because the job is not done yet. So you don't even have to just look at the moves. You can also listen to the way that both Jerry Dipoto and Scott Service are speaking. And I also want to make sure that the blame is placed on ownership because they are in control of the budget. So Dipoto is just working with what he's got. But when you hear both of their answers over the past week talking about topics, and they continuously have to mention financial flexibility and how now they've got a little more breathing room with the budget, all of that stuff. That is because they work for ownership, right? But that is essentially them saying, we have been told we can't spend that much. So our budget is going to be maybe what it was this past season, maybe otherwise maybe even a little bit lower. Whatever it is, it's not going to be getting close to that, say, $200 million number that a lot of people thought that they were going to be able to get to, whether they landed someone like Ohtani or not, which we can get to if we want in a sec. But forget that. Here's one other part I'll say that really bothered me over the past week. Ken Rosenthal is our insider on the show, and I had to bring him on to clarify what he wrote in a report over the past week that said that the Mariners spoke to the Rays about Randy Arozarena and Isaac Freitas, two players I really like. They told them, let's hold off on this because we're not in a good money state to talk about this yet. Those two players combined next year make $12 million. That is like a quarter in Major League Baseball. So I'm like, we went from thinking maybe they'd be in the running for a $50 million a year Ohtani to we need to talk later on about $12 million for two good players. Oof. That is why I'm fuming right now, and I'm about to pull over.
Is it as simple as they're just cheap? Or is it – I always look at, all right, is it profit margins? I mean, they made money last year. I don't know, man. Just give me something. Are they just cheap, as simple as that?
So, and this is why I love my current job so much, because I can ask the questions the way I want to ask them, and also in a fun way. But when I spoke to Ken, when I spoke to Ryan Divish, who does a great job covering the team, and a few other people that cover the Mariners very closely, my first question was, are the Mariners broke? And obviously I'm saying that tongue-in-cheek. No, they're profiting like crazy. They were top 10 in attendance this past season. Seattle baseball is buzzing, which is reason for upping your payroll. They are just being cheap and or loving the profits that they're getting and looking around the league and saying, we don't have to spend this much. Like there's a big narrative going on right now in baseball in general where they look at teams like the Rays with sustained success for years. They look at teams like the Baltimore Orioles who tanked for 6 years and are barely paying anyone, and they had a really good year. They look at a team like the Reds who just did a similar thing, although now they're starting to spend, and saying, well, why do we have to spend that much? Why do we have to spend like the Mets and the Yankees and the Padres, right? None of whom made the playoffs this past season. It's more about that. Like, why don't we keep an extra $50 million for ourselves and spend it and reinvest it in our team and pleasing our fans to actually make the playoffs again? Because newsflash, the Mariners missed the playoffs this past year because their offense wasn't good enough. They're going to make it a little bit better, but it's not going to be as better as people hoped it would be because they are limited on spending.
I'm so glad you mentioned narratives that always drive you crazy, because that's what an offseason is all about, right? It's always about narratives. It's always about pointing to other teams, especially when it helps your case. Like if you're saying spending doesn't work and then pointing to the Mets, you could just as easily point to the Rangers. But you said, God, I hear so much this narrative of, well, what about what the Tampa Bay Rays are doing? The Rays have won 2 AL pennants, which is great. They've never won a World Series. And it's one of the arguments that just drives me crazy because not only do they have exceptional scouting and team building, but it still hasn't paid off because it's really hard to win without spending at all. Right, Scott?
Yes, spot on. Who just won? And we say this every year. The Texas Rangers pushed Chip in over the past few years and then doubled down just now at the trade deadline. Scherzer, who, yes, got hurt, but then eventually did give them some innings. Jordan Montgomery was the prize of the trade deadline that many other teams should have been in on and was a huge part of why they won a World Series. Aroldis Chapman, again, up and down, but effective, still helpful, still a plus, not a minus for them, adding pitching depth. Not to mention what they've done the previous few off seasons. You're going to make mistakes. There are going to be misses. Like Jacob deGrom is an insanely talented pitcher, super injury prone, wasn't a factor essentially for the team this year. Okay, that's a miss for this past season. Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, pretty damn good. So yes, you have to put chips in. And I agree with you that there's a reason why the Rays have been consistently good, but not good enough. That's part of it. You have to, when you're in that position, go a little bit further in terms of acquiring more upper echelon pitching is often the case. Sometimes, like for Seattle, that's position players as well that are stars. So, I mean, let's not beat around the bush on this one. Our show was mostly revolving around Shohei Ohtani rumors. I still think this should make Mariners fans even more mad right now that Ohtani had a very good chance of selecting the Mariners if they decided they were going to be in play. They basically leaked very early on this offseason to a reporter that they were not going to be playing for Shohei Ohtani. Massive mistake, especially when you see that he's not a lot to go to the Dodgers. He's seriously considering the Blue Jays. I think he would have been very seriously considering the Seattle Mariners for many reasons. What a whiff this has been for them to not be involved on a player like